Hey guys, what's up? So for today, I would like to focus on another specific area, and that is paraphrasing. This is also another crucial skill set when it comes to CELPIP, both CELPIP and IELTS, but more so for IELTS, especially in the writing section. Now, when it comes to paraphrasing, most of you are probably aware that it's simply just rephrasing a certain sentence differently. Now, a lot of the times, this is done to elucidate. So basically, you take a sentence and try to make it a lot clearer by either using less complicated wordings or more clearer structure, etc. There are a lot of different ways for us to paraphrase certain sentences. And this is something that IELTS examiner really look forward to because they do test this skill a lot in the writing section, in the speaking section, and even in the listening section. You do have to be aware when a paraphrasing happens because if you're not aware, you usually can easily miss the answer, right? So today I would just like to take some time and show you guys, what paraphrasing is all about and how many different forms. Now, I'm not going to cover all, of course, but I'm going to show you a couple of example on how certain sentences can be paraphrased, and the way that they are paraphrased, like how done. So let's take a look into the examples immediately. So first sentence is he sang a song for the audience. Now you guys can immediately see that this is an active sentence. It is a complete sentence. You have the subject, you have the verb, and then you have the complementary. Right. So in that regards, right, when it comes to paraphrasing, there are different ways that you can do that. Now, if you take a look at the example of how it is paraphrased, the first one, it keeps the active sentence format. And all it does is basically change the different dictions, right? So instead of she sang, the first one says she performed a musical, not she performed, because performance can also deal with um, magic acts, circus, etc. This is purely a song, so perform a musical, and then it adds a number, right, for the spectators, right? So spectators and audience can be slightly different, but in this case, in the case of paraphrasing, it's not that significantly different, right? Audience is the general term that you will use when you have a lot of people watching you, right? Spectators, that's the kind of word that you would usually use, when it's kind of massive, and for example, in a stadium, like watching football matches, etc. So they're not different, basically, like essentially. Now, in this case, so it's basically just change the wording of the verb and also the object, which is audience here. So this is one type of paraphrasing that you can do. Usually, and that's the easiest as well. You usually only need to change the word. So you find a synonym that basically means the same thing or close to the same thing, and it basically will be the same sentence. Let's take a look at the second paraphrase example. So here's she serenaded. It uses a more complex word or a word that's not frequently used, the crowd with a tune. All right. Now you can see that in this sentence, the object moved forward a little bit and it used the crowd. Now, if you kind of compare the two sentences, right, it kept the structure. They're both active sentences. Which one feels more appropriate in this case? Definitely the first one. Right? It's a lot closer to to the original sentence, and this is something that you have to be careful about. You might paraphrase and feel that the essence is pretty much the same, but in the second sentence, she serenaded the crowd with a tune. Now, this feels slightly smaller in scale. Like a crowd is usually it doesn't come close to an audience or spectators, right? It's like more like a crowd that you see in a park, right? Like a three can be considered a crowd, right? So one is a company, two can be considered a crowd, etc. So in that regards, the second example might not be a good paraphrase of the original sentence. And this is what you have to be careful when it comes to paraphrasing, especially the question statement in the writing section. So you have to be 100% sure that your paraphrase gets as close as possible to the original sentence, right? You might have slight difference in, like the scale or the degree of the accuracy of certain expression, but it has to be quite minor, right? If you compare a crowd with a spectator, probably not that close. All right, now let's take a look at the second example. All right, so here we have the company will launch a new product next month. Now, as usual, the first easiest paraphrase is always to kind of just find different words for each one, right, that comes into your mind, and then keep the structure the same. So let's take a look if that's what happened in the first example. The company corporation, they're essentially the same thing. Now there is a difference in how they operate or the hierarchy, the structure, whatever, but they're basically same. You can refer to a company corporation, a corporation a company, right? Yeah, some people might get upset because it's different structure. Nope, in English you can basically say they're the same. We'll introduce a fresh item. A fresh item. Look at that. That's nice, right? Fresh. Sorry, not next. Fresh and new item in the upcoming month. That's a nice one as well, right? You can see how crucial vocabulary is. And in all of my videos, I've reiterated this so many times. And I'm going to reiterate again. Please continue to improve your vocabulary because this is the kind of thing that you will be able to do. You are going to easily paraphrase sentences. And not only will you be able to do that yourself, but you can also easily notice it, especially when it comes the listening section, right? But if we take a look at the different form, now we start to see a different kind of example, right, with a different structure. So here it says a new product. So now we start with the object. So this is passive, right? From the company is set to debut next month. This is also a very nice paraphrasing. This is very nice. A new product was not paraphrased there, right? So they kept it the same, which is okay, right? From time to time, you don't need to literally change every single word, but if possible, you should. So if the second sentence were to say a fresh item, that's completely fine as well. So here, a new product from the company also kept the same. Again, that is fine. Is set to debut next month. Now here, what is the significant difference? As I mentioned, it's a different structure. So this example might have kept the two words or the two terms the same. So the new product and the company. But this person changed the structure. So that is a really good skill set as well. Remember, one of the criteria in listening and speaking is grammatical range. So it's not just about your ability to change uh, or to kind of make a showcase that you know different synonyms or antonyms, right? But you can also change the structure. So both of these examples are quite good. So we've seen how you can paraphrase by keeping the structure the same exact way, passive or active, and simply just change the wording of each term. Or you can also completely change the structure. So from active to passive or from passive to active. So as long as the essence is maintained, right? Now let's take another look at a different example. Right, this one is a simple one. He was afraid of flying. Right? Pretty simple. He was afraid of flying. So in this case, we only need to kind of find the synonym of afraid, maybe flying, right? So in the first example, it says here he had fear. He had a fear of air travel. Now, does that make sense, right? So one of the things that you should ask yourself when you're doing paraphrasing is that do they go into the same categories? In this case, flying and air travel. Yes, they are, because the only way humans can fly is if they travel in the air, whether that be by airplanes, parachute, paragliding, same thing, right? That's air traveling. You can kind of consider that the same thing. He had a fear. Now, paraphrase as well. He had a fear, and this is also a change in parts of speech, because in the original sentence, the person used an adjective, but in the paraphrase, this is a noun. So now there's a new tactic that you can use: change the parts of speech. So when you change the word, you can also change the part of speech, which automatically means that you change the structure as well. Because when you use an adjective, you have to use a verb to be. But when you change it to a noun, now you have to use the verb to have, basically changing the structure a little bit and showcasing that you know more auxiliary verbs, right? Let's see the second example. The thought of flying made him nervous. All right, now this is not a better paraphrase than the first one, because the thought of flying made him nervous. Because nervous, we can kind of consider at this point that nervous is weaker than fear. Now, this is something that you have to take note as well when it comes to paraphrasing in your writing or speaking, because fear is something that will cause you to back away almost immediately, right? It's like even an encouragement would struggle to push you. But if you change that to being nervous, it's it's much lighter, right? It's much lighter. So when you do that kind of interchanging the synonym, right, and you feel like, yeah, they're kind of close together, be careful with that. Similar to what we discussed in the first example, right? If you change the degree of how profound the word is, that might kind of change the meaning as well. Because being nervous is not as profound as being afraid. If I'm afraid of a ghost, I will freak out when I see it, right? Or I'm just gonna run away if I know that there's a ghost. But if I'm nervous of ghosts, if I see it, I might be shaking a little bit, but I can push myself to approach or just face it. Right? Not to say that I want to, but that's the essence. All right. So the second part isn't a better paraphrase because of that exchange of synonym alone. Now, if you see just the first part of that sentence, the thought of flying, that part is good, right? The thought of something make you afraid. The thought of something make you blah blah blah, right? So in that case, that part is also good, changing the structure, changing the expression, right? So basically, that is how paraphrasing should look like, right? If you keep like 60% or more than 50% of the word without changing the structure, that will not count as a good paraphrasing. So please keep that in mind. You have when you If you want to make a really good paraphrase, a really good paraphrasing, you need to make sure that you change about 70% of the original sentence, right? Unless the sentence contains a lot of specific terminologies that you just cannot change, like maybe they're scientific, or they're just terminologies that doesn't really have a synonym or alternative, right? That's usually not that common, but it does come up from time to time. But if that doesn't happen, you do need to change 70% of that original sentence. Now, you can keep some of the original words, of course, and not change every single one. But if you do that, then you have to do what this sentence did. Let's go back to the top here, right? This one, right? This changes the structure completely, changing from active passive, and some of the vocabulary and half of the vocabulary is also changed, right? So that accounts for more than 50% of the original sentence being changed. All right, guys. So hopefully that helps you out in just getting a better picture of what good paraphrasing looks like and what not so good paraphrasing looks like. So this does require you to practice quite a lot, and this will take time. So in HZad education, we actually have a really good course for you to continuously practice your paraphrasing skills. And don't forget, this is a crucial skill for you if you are doing CELPIP or IELTS. So do check out the link in the description below. Our courses are quite affordable and they're all self-paced. If you need a lot of time to practice your paraphrasing, you can. That's not a problem. And our courses are money back guarantee as well, so you'll get your money back, no question asked, if you do not achieve your goal. All right, guys, that's my time. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to leave a like and a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.